Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you a pleasant listening experience. Today, the book I'm going to interpret for you is called Rapport. It primarily discusses how to build rapport with others through communication. The two authors of this book are quite unique. They are a married couple. The husband is Lawrence Allison, and the wife is Emily Allison. Both of them are experts in interrogation psychology, specializing in studying how to make suspects talk in various interrogation scenarios. They've been in this field for over 30 years, having observed numerous interrogations, truly living up to the rapport in the book's title. You know, communication between interrogators and suspects is one of the most challenging forms of communication in the world. However, the authors have found that even in such difficult communication scenarios, certain communication techniques can have a significant impact. Based on their practical experience, they have developed a set of communication guidelines. These guidelines are used by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and several national police agencies. The book we're discussing today is the public version of these communication guidelines. In real life, we often encounter difficult communication scenarios, such as addressing boundaries with colleagues, having heart-to-heart conversations with stubborn teenagers locked in their rooms, or dealing with poor customer service. The authors tell us that in these challenging communication scenarios, it's not about ad hoc responses but about mastering a systematic communication methodology. Building rapport with others in interpersonal interactions is the key to resolving problems fundamentally. Rapport refers to a relationship state of mutual recognition and understanding between individuals. When two people are in this state, their communication and cooperation become smoother. So, whether you want to expand your social network, turn enemies into friends, or extract reliable information from those initially unwilling to cooperate, learning to build rapport is essential. It's not only a fundamental life skill but also a basic professional skill. Next, I will introduce how to build rapport with others in interpersonal interactions in two parts. The first part consists of universally applicable rapport-building tools, and the second part includes 4 communication models named after animals, each suitable for different types of people. You can choose the model that best suits your needs to improve your rapport with others. Now, let's dive into the first part to explore the rapport-building tools the authors present. These tools include 4 key words: honesty, empathy, autonomy, and reflection. Their initials spell HR, forming the word here. So, the authors collectively refer to them as the HERE principles. The meaning of honesty is straightforward. In conflict situations, don't avoid the issue, don't downplay it, and don't beat around the bush. Express your thoughts honestly. The authors say this is the foundation for establishing any rapport, and when expressing your thoughts, it's best to do so face-to-face, rather than through passive forms of communication like email, text messages, or WeChat. These passive methods can lead to information and emotional loss and, in turn, misunderstandings. After discussing honesty, let's talk about autonomy. Autonomy means that in the process of communication, you should refrain from bossing others around and provide them with ample room for autonomy, encouraging them to make the right decisions for themselves. Psychologists have found that the more you pressure someone to obey you, the more likely it is to provoke resistance or rebellion. So, no matter how much you want someone to do things your way, you should grant them the freedom to choose. Even when giving advice, try to include a statement like, "Of course, the decision is entirely yours," or offer multiple options to the other person. Okay, honesty and autonomy should be clear to you without further explanation. Now, let's focus on empathy and reflection. Empathy is a term often heard when discussing communication. It primarily requires us to understand the other person's emotional values by putting ourselves in their shoes. For some naturally empathetic individuals, this might come easily, but others may need some external techniques. The most common approach is to acknowledge the other person's feelings when they describe their situation to us. For instance, if a friend tells you they're unsure about the longevity of their marriage, how should you respond? Do you say, "Don't think too much, just enjoy life," or, "If it doesn't work out, you can always divorce"? The principle of empathy requires us not to judge the other person's viewpoint but to try to respond to their feelings. You can say, "What's been happening? You must be feeling quite torn, right?" At this point, the other person may either agree with your statement, admitting they're indeed torn, or say, "Well, it's not that bad, but I've been feeling like I don't want to stay at home lately." Regardless of their response, it allows you to gain further insight into their thoughts. This is the basic function of empathy. It lets the other person reveal more information to you, gradually deepening the conversation. In typical situations, when dealing with conflicting scenarios where one person wants something and another wants something else, how can you use the empathy principle? Let's look at a straightforward example provided in the book. For instance, one morning, your 3-year-old child insists on wearing a damp green dinosaur t-shirt to preschool, but the shirt hasn't dried yet. If you simply tell them, the shirt is wet, you can't wear it, the child might start crying and throwing a tantrum, refusing to listen. So, you can say it differently, like this: "Sweetie, I know you really love that t-shirt. You'd be upset if you can't wear it, right?" If the child nods, you can continue, "But, sweetheart, the shirt isn't dry yet, and it won't be comfortable to wear. I promised to put it in the dryer today so you can wear it tomorrow. Today, you can choose another one from your collection of 20 dinosaur t-shirts. That way, we won't be late." How does that sound? This passage includes a key aspect of applying the empathy principle in conflict situations, which is acknowledging the other person's feelings before explaining your own viewpoint. This can help the other person release their resistance and better accept the information you want to convey. The authors have found that this is one of the best choices when you want someone to change their mind. However, sometimes you might find it challenging to empathize with someone. In other words, you can't guess what the other person is thinking or feeling. Many parents often experience this when dealing with their teenage children, like a 13-year-old son who suddenly becomes moody, avoids talking, and spends all day in his room playing with his phone. You're worried and want to talk to him. In such cases, some parents might call their child out and directly ask, "What's been going on with you lately? Are you having issues with your friends?" The child says, "No." "Is someone bothering you at school?" "No." "Did you get scolded by a teacher?" "No." "Is it because of the recent exams?" "No." What should you do when you feel you can't empathize with the other person, meaning you can't understand their thoughts or feelings, which is often the case when dealing with teenagers? Please let me know if you'd like me to continue with the next part, or if you have any specific questions. Here is the English translation of the provided content. At this point, the child may already be impatient. They might stand up directly and tell you not to worry about them, as they're perfectly fine. As we can see, in the previous conversation, the parent made assumptions about the child's situation and attempted to validate these assumptions through a barrage of questions. This is a common approach, but it often doesn't yield the desired results. The authors suggest using the approach of empathy combined with autonomy. For example, you can say, "Hey, I've noticed that you've been a bit unhappy these days, not very talkative, always keeping to yourself. If you ever want to talk, feel free to come to me. I promise not to scold you or get angry." This passage uses the method of empathy combined with autonomy. In this context, empathy can be as simple as objectively describing the overall state you've observed in the other person, indicating that you've noticed their changes and genuinely care. Autonomy means inviting the other person to talk with you while giving them the freedom to refuse. The authors suggest that at this point, you've essentially cracked open a door to their inner thoughts. Even if they don't immediately open up to you, when they're ready, they will naturally come to you. The authors have found that empathy not only deepens relationships with loved ones but also enhances interactions with adversaries. When police interrogate criminal suspects, if they can employ empathy techniques effectively, the information they obtain from the suspects tends to be more reliable. The authors remind us that empathy doesn't mean being overly enthusiastic or friendly. Genuine empathy involves understanding what matters to the other person and doesn't require you to express agreement. You simply need to listen patiently and curiously without passing judgment. If you want to build a connection with the other person or even guide their behavior, understanding them more is essential. Now, let's move on to the fourth and most powerful tool in the here principles, which is reflection. The key to reflection is to listen carefully to what the other person is saying and extract the key information you want to delve into, then paraphrase or restate it. This might sound simple but is not easy in practice. Selecting the crucial information and paraphrasing appropriately are the challenging parts. Now, I will elaborate on how to do this. Let's begin with an example from the book. Imagine a young man saying to a young woman, "I know we've talked about moving in together and getting married, but I think the timing isn't right. Things are fine the way they are now. If a woman who isn't skilled at reflection responds, she might retort, "If the timing isn't right now, when will it be? Seems like you just don't want to be with me." But a woman adept at reflection will grasp the key attitude-related keywords from the man's words for further understanding. For example, she might say, "So, you think the timing isn't right now, or you feel things are fine as they are now?" After this, the young man may explain that she's been busy with work, and her current location close to the office is convenient for her, and she'd prefer to work for a couple more years, save for a down payment, and buy a new house together, rather than rushing to rent one now. This response might not entirely satisfy the woman, but it helps her understand his thought process better. She can now see that his decision to continue living separately is based on practical considerations, not a lack of affection. Let's examine another dialogue from the book about healthy living. A woman says to a man, "I feel like I need to pay more attention to my diet and exercise, but I'm so busy every day, and it feels unachievable." The man responds, "You're not that busy, you finished an entire TV series this week. If you really wanted to exercise, you could definitely make time." This kind of response is clearly incorrect because it isn't encouraging but rather aims to make the other person feel ashamed. The author suggests that shaming doesn't lead to change, it only makes the other person feel attacked, leading to resistance or self-closure. So, how should reflection be done? It's quite simple. Remember that in the woman's words, there's a contradiction. She's feeling overwhelmed, yet she recognizes the need for a healthier diet and exercise. The man can merely paraphrase this contradiction. He might say, "Well, indeed, you're under a lot of stress, and you're quite tired every day. But you do recognize the need for a balanced diet and exercise to avoid harming your body." Note that when pointing out the contradiction, it's essential to maintain a curious and accepting attitude, never to criticize the other person. The author observed that during interrogations, when investigators presented evidence and asked the suspect, "Is that really what you said? How do you explain this evidence?" the suspect often stopped cooperating. In everyday life, it's similar. Don't back the other person into a corner, as that will lead to their non-cooperation and withdrawal from the conversation. Once the woman has heard the man's reflection, she might further discuss her inner conflicts, such as saying, "Last year, I used to go to the gym 3 times a week, ate healthily, and I felt great. I want to get back to that lifestyle, but it feels like I'm lacking the energy now." In this dialogue, there are some positive and affirmative cues that can be extracted. Therefore, in the subsequent reflection, the man can consciously emphasize them. For instance, he might say, "You're right, that healthy lifestyle had many benefits. You put in a lot of effort last year." Studies in behavioral psychology show that reinforcing positive behavior is more effective in inducing change than criticizing negative behavior. So, an important aspect of reflection is to uncover positive information hidden within the other person's words and reinforce it to overshadow the negative aspects. The final feedback technique is interpreting and summarizing, which requires us to summarize the deeper thoughts the other person wants to convey through their words. Remember, interpreting and summarizing are the most challenging of all feedback techniques and require a lot of practice. In the process of practice, you can use phrases like, "It seems like you feel," or "It looks like you care a lot about," to make the other person feel that you genuinely care about and understand them. To recap, the key to all these feedback techniques is not to rush into judgment but to extract the information you want to delve into from the other person's words and rephrase it. By doing this, we guide the other person toward more profound communication, encouraging them to reveal more about their thoughts or feelings. This way, we can gather as much information as possible and steer the conversation in the direction we desire. If you have more content to be translated or specific questions, feel free to ask. Alright, let's continue with this universally applicable set of interpersonal skills, the HERE principle, which stands for honesty, empathy, autonomy, and feedback. Now, let's discuss how to develop a communication style that's best suited for building rapport based on these principles. Through numerous experiences, the author has identified 4 primary communication styles that people tend to fall into. They've given these styles different animal names: T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex, lion, monkey, and mouse. Each of these communication styles has positive traits as well as negative ones. Let's start with the T-Rex communication style. The positive trait of a T-Rex is being frank and direct. They are straightforward, and when facing a conflict, they make their boundaries clear. This can be helpful as it ensures that others know where they stand. However, some Tier X individuals might express their thoughts with a strong sense of aggression. They might struggle to control their tempers, and their communication can become sarcastic, reproachful, or intimidating, which often hinders problem resolution. For instance, one of the authors, Emily, who has some Tier X traits, got angry during a family vacation when they were staying in an apartment near a noisy construction site. She called the front desk and complained loudly, demanding an immediate resolution. However, the front desk couldn't resolve the issue promptly. So, her husband, Lawrence, the other author, chose a different approach. He recorded the construction noise with a tablet, went to the front desk, greeted the staff politely, and said, "We received a welcoming letter when we checked in, which was thoughtful. But, I noticed it mentioned that some areas of the resort are currently under maintenance, which should have minimal impact on your experience. We assure you that you will have a pleasant stay here." After a warm acknowledgement from the front desk, Lawrence played the recorded noise. The staff's expression changed as they listened. After the recording, Lawrence calmly asked, "Do you consider this to have a minimal impact on your guests?" The staff replied, "No, sir." Through this diplomatic approach, they met with the manager, and their issue was resolved, including a 50% discount and extra bonus points. This story demonstrates that compared to Emily's earlier aggressive and confrontational approach, Lawrence's method was far more effective. It reveals that emotional and aggressive expressions not only fail to solve problems but can also damage interpersonal relationships. To be a positive Tier X, it's crucial to express your thoughts clearly and calmly without resorting to insulting or offensive language, no matter how the other party reacts. Remember that the goal is to make your voice heard and your boundaries clear, not to win an argument or vent your emotions. If possible, consider preparing your words in advance and rehearse with a trusted person. This practice can help you manage your emotions and maintain rationality in a conversation. Now, let's move on to the Lion communication style. Lions, unlike Tier X's, excel in guiding and instructing others. They are effective at giving precise instructions and possess strong leadership qualities. This communication style is suitable for managers or parents. However, some lions may impose their own will on others, become overly controlling, and feel the need to supervise every detail. For example, some children might feel that their parents issue commands all the time. Have you finished your homework? Did you drink your milk? Have you brushed your teeth? In the corporate world, some bosses might constantly demand tasks from their subordinates and monitor their work daily. The ideal lion communication style balances assertiveness with not being authoritarian. They should encourage individual thinking, give others some autonomy, and focus on guidance rather than directives. Parents can empower their children by allowing them to make decisions on smaller matters and engaging in conversations with them using an encouraging rather than commanding approach. Leaders do not need to control every aspect of their subordinates' work. Instead, they should delegate responsibilities and nurture their team's strengths. This approach fosters independence and helps create a positive working environment. Additionally, there's the monkey communication style, which is also suitable for managers or parents. Monkeys exhibit positive traits such as friendliness, warmth, and cooperation. They excel at building positive relationships and strengthening connections within a team. To develop a monkey communication style, you can follow a 3-step process described in the book. First, listen actively to find out the interests and values of the other person. Second, share your own experiences and find common ground to strengthen the bond. Finally, guide the conversation using the feedback techniques discussed earlier. This communication style is all about listening more than speaking. A 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio of listening to speaking is recommended. The better you listen and provide feedback, the more comfortable others will be sharing with you, and your understanding of them will deepen, leading to more effective collaboration. However, positive monkey communicators should be cautious not to blur the boundaries with others, as their willingness to cooperate can sometimes lead to an inability to say no or to establish their own limits. It's essential to maintain a balance between cooperation and maintaining personal boundaries. I hope this helps in understanding these communication styles and how to apply them effectively, whether it's between parents and children, superiors and subordinates, or colleagues. Once boundaries are lost, things become chaotic. People save face, and it becomes challenging to address each other's issues. So, while fostering a friendly and collaborative atmosphere, it's essential to maintain boundaries. For example, avoid discussing too many personal matters with coworkers, and with children, don't always say yes, establish clear rules and boundaries. If you find yourself in a situation where boundaries have blurred, and you're unable to address issues with someone, it might be time to incorporate a bit of the Tier X style communication. For example, if it's a subordinate or colleague, you can express that you value your friendship and enjoy the honesty in your relationship, but you must point out existing issues and then present your thoughts. The author emphasizes that even though the situation might get a bit awkward, it's better than allowing the boundaries to remain blurry and issues unresolved. True friends will understand your perspective and respect you, not take advantage of the relationship. Next, let's talk about the last communication style, the mouse. Its essence lies in allowing the other party to have control, being willing to follow their lead, and being open to making concessions. The author claims that the mouse style is the most crucial communication method for building rapport, backed by thousands of hours of reviewing interrogation recordings. They found that the most exceptional interrogators showed respect and humility toward the individuals they were questioning, regardless of how much they despised them. In a specific case where a rather intimidating suspect faced a calm and patient interrogator, it showcased the advantages of the mouse style. The interrogator didn't attempt to control the conversation but allowed the suspect to take the lead. He used a blank notebook to show he had no set list of questions and simply wanted to hear the suspect's perspective. The suspect, who expected a different approach, was taken aback and said, "If that's the case, then why should I cooperate with you?" The interrogator paused for 10 seconds, then calmly replied, "On the day the police arrested you, I suspected you were planning to harm the police academy students. I don't know the details or why you felt you had to do this, only you do. I want to know the truth, not to please my superiors, but to protect the people. I won't force you to tell me, the choice is yours." The suspect eventually provided information, and this incident exemplifies why it worked. The interrogator didn't try to control the situation. It's evident that the suspect wanted to lead the conversation, and the interrogator let him. He remained calm, patient, and humble, just like a mouse patiently waiting for a lion. To be a positive mouse, the crucial skill is to use the autonomy tool from the first section. Autonomy doesn't equate to weakness, it's a subtle yet powerful technique that allows the other party to feel in control, making them drop their guard and even volunteer information or concessions. However, there are also negative traits associated with the mouse style, such as hesitancy, weakness, or reluctance. If a manager exhibits these traits, it can be challenging to maintain order within a team or project. So, the author advises that even while allowing others to lead the conversation, you should avoid appearing weak. Use feedback strategies to guide the conversation during listening, and steer the discussion as needed. When you need to showcase your leadership, decisiveness, and confidence, don't hesitate to shift from the mouse style to embody a positive lion or monkey role. Alright, that wraps up the 4 animal-based communication styles. By now, you probably have an idea of which style you most often embody and the areas you can develop or improve. The author emphasizes that there's no single most positive style. In reality, each style has its time and place. The key is being able to adapt the right communication style to different situations. We've covered some aspects of this, but if you want to explore more cases and the interactions between different animal types, you can expand your reading through the ebook at the end of the transcript. So, to sum it up, the primary focus of this book has been 2 parts. First is the HERE principle, which stands for honesty, empathy, autonomy, and feedback. These are tools that can be applied by anyone to foster rapport effectively. Second is the 4 communication styles named after different animals. Each style has its positive and negative traits, and success in communication depends on amplifying the positive traits while avoiding the negatives. The author emphasizes that while initially, it may seem difficult to apply these techniques, practice makes perfect. You don't have to carry all this knowledge, it's about how far you can go with what you carry. Thanks for listening to the Tim Booker channel. Remember to subscribe, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practicality to achieve financial goals and create a better future. Thank you all, and goodbye.